And now I shall narrate for you from the book, The Final Chapter by Eddie Marcus. And this segment is January 2000. Direction to Oprah Winfrey, UPI, USA Today, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, BET. And this are media sources and a email that reads, I discovered that the whole world is corrupt, including America, as well as its three branches of government: executive, judicial, legislative, at every level, federal, state, and local, including the FBI, the CIA, ATF, police, military, business, private and nonprofit, education, medical and employment, religion, and the church, just to name a few. If a doctor or scientist found a cure for cancer, and every form of media turned a deaf ear, having compassion for the sufferers, the doctor or scientist would try other means to make this knowledge known to the public. If all else failed, he or she would commit a nonviolent crime, openly disobey some law in order to draw attention to him, herself, in hopes of releasing that information. Having done this, if the message was still withheld to the extent that the discoverer was jailed for the extraordinary attempts, the conclusion would be that for one reason or another, the powers that be required that cancer remain on the scene. I'm a social scientist and minister. After having thousands ask me to pray in their behalf for health, family, community, prosperity, peace, economy, education, jobs, and for their enemies, and being blessed with the wisdom and knowledge of satisfying most of the requests where God has put the power in our hands, I have found it necessary to commit nonviolent crimes openly violating the law in hopes of getting the message out, while the powers that be have refused to allow it out. Am I to conclude that the powers that be want these social problems to stay on the scene? If these Americans, news, media, services, and justice systems, having knowledge of these initiatives, find that it is more compelling for the fruition of the American dream by allowing the creative continuation of social ills which further allow thousands of citizens to live in poverty, and a greater percentage of that being children, accepting an exorbitant amount of crime and violence against an unsuspecting public to the extent that terrorism is broadened within the continental United States, where school children are so despondent about life and the future of life until the probability is high of their backpacks hiding a gun rather than books, where the mentally retarded and elderly are cast aside hopelessly to wander or live at the discretion of compassionless profit seekers. If this reflects the psyche of America, then not only am I ashamed of her, as she should be for herself, I'd rather be dead. But since the law does not allow the taking of my life at this juncture, then let prison life speak to the world that society has rejected these ideas with me as it rejected them with Jesus Christ, Martin Luther King Jr., and Mahatma Gandhi. For 22 years, at one time or another, I have requested your support and others. Each of you turned your back on the citizens of America. I want you to know this before I go to jail on January 6, 2000, Ramsey County Courthouse, St. Paul, Minnesota. I forgive you, and I hope the people of this country does also. Thanks. Next society page, a remarkable man. Mr. Marcus is a remarkable man, said Ramsey County Prosecutor Mitchell L. Rothman, who moments earlier had successfully caused a verdict of guilty of felony theft by misrepresentation against Mr. Marcus. Mr. Rothman was responding to the question of whether Mr. Marcus should remain free until sentencing or be taken into custody. And he is very unusual. I don't think the state has anything to fear from Mr. Marcus, the prosecution concluded. There he stood, this young 50-year-old man, represented by an angel of an attorney, Miss Phyllis Frederick of St. Paul Neighborhood Justice Center, not really exacting any sense of being special until one realizes why he's there in the first place. The state proved its allegation that this act was committed by Mr. Marcus, a fact Mr. Marcus never denied. In an earlier interview, Mr. Marcus had stated that justice demands that not only an illegal act is committed, but the motivation and intent of the actor must be evaluated as well. His entire case rested on his ability to convince the jury that we as people of the community are authors of the story that is our community. He must convince them that we, the community, are as responsible for the ugly side of America as we are the beautiful. That not only are we responsible to end the ugliness, we will never have our prayers answered until we do. Mr. Marcus, who previously declined a plea bargain of no jail time, restitution, and community service, was about to see the system he knew so well at work. Right away, the jury pollsters were told that motive and intent was to play no role in the decision if the facts stood. Then they were told they must take an oath stating that whatever they may think contrary to the law and or proceeding, they must respond only as the law dictates. When one medical doctor responded to one such question with the question, "You mean, do I deny a person his conscientious objection on my own for the law?" he was let go. That kind of person couldn't serve the state's purpose. Oh boy. Here stands this man who 22 years ago made a commitment to end poverty from this earth, starting with America, and create prosperity for all people, as the God of creation would have it, if the people agree. This man who accepted an other than honorable separation from the Navy, rather than go along with the policies of the Reagan administration, as they caused more pain and suffering for some. This man who has been in jails no less than 12 times for the cause, sought the office of mayor, governor, and U.S. president several times. Excited about the answers to your prayers being at hand, he willingly gives up his freedom to stop the Gulf War and is giving up his life that he may play no part in the destruction of man by man. Now, does appear to be somewhat remarkable. As a born-again child of God, I knew who I am. I know who I am. I know who God is. And I know who you are. Everyone and everything belongs to God. What one does with their life is the only thing they own. The societies that know this is heaven and paradise. Those that don't is earth and hell. It is the business of law and the blind to force me or kill me. As a representative of what the nation has been taught to hate, blacks and economic justice, he stood before a jury of haters and special interest conservatives who gladly put rebels in jail and said, if the world ended tonight, I'd rather be chained in a dungeon for right than loose in society acting as if I didn't know better. Yes, he is a very remarkable man. He stood there for the poor, yet there were no poor in the courtroom. He stood there for the sick, uninsured, the homeless, the jobless, his family as well as yours. He stood there alone, giving up his freedom, while President Reagan, Bush, and Clinton had shown no interest to his appeals for a dialogue on social change. He received the same response from several Congresses, United Nations, governors, and city mayors of major populated cities. Talk show hosts, organizations, churches, media, each willing to continue their efforts, but not interested in the solution, the end of the problem. I feel like king of the world, standing alone for the cause of Christ and humanity. I must be the man. I've been touched. I've been given a vision of paradise on earth. Never again will I ever accept America's standards as normal. Jail won't reform me. The threat of death won't deter me. I want the children to know that God's way conquers fear. Since the state of Minnesota and the people of America has spoken, I claim no home in this world, nor do I love anyone or anything enough to pretend to be blind, stupid, and scared enough to go along with the status quo. Now, forward. Usually, scientists are respected for what they study and solutions they bring to problems or changes they offer that forego problems. Medical science is of utmost concern and respected for the possible cures they may offer society from sickness and disease. In technology, whatever can be achieved or advanced or used to make life simpler, and that at a profit, is acceptable. The computer scientists have worked wonders for communications and have made a lot of folk rich. We have made great strides in this area. But nowadays, you can talk and the computer will write your talk in any language without misspellings or poor punctuations and proper grammar. Send it to where you want it to go. And this without having to touch the computer. There's one scientist, however, that society hates. This is the social scientist, the one who looks for ways to cause people to act as coherent as computers, who determine how to live in peace and harmony, prosperously, in accord with the personal prayers of humankind. This scientist no one respects. The governments try to silence him, the church won't support him, yet the service is the most needed on earth wherever humans exist. The science offers solutions to crime and violence, drugs and alcohol abuse, war and poverty, social injustice, racism, etc. In this book, you will see the role of the various groups in the American society that prohibits a change from the old destructive order. You will see the role average citizens play in their continued torment. Also that of the elite, the various races, the church and other religious groups, the justice system, the poor, the gender, young and old, each playing a major role in maintaining the status quo. You will see the obstacles and hurdles that the social scientist has had to go through in order to share the truth with an unwaiting public. The jail sentencing, the loss of family and outright social deprivation as a result of commitment to social enlightenment. In the end, you will see clearly that paradise on earth, which is an expression of thy will being done on earth as in heaven, can be achieved. You will also see that many society rejects the answer to its own prayers. The individual can live a free, peaceful, joyous life in spite of the society. In fact, this booklet is being presented to the individual of the public as a last resort to get the truth to whomever is searching and would want it. This book will help whoever will to find a new and joyous life in spite of life circumstances, in spite of everyone else's effort to deter it. And that is where I will stop. Next time we will start on the power of divine love in the hands of humankind.